Okay, possibly this will be the last one of this series of USA v. City of Portland regarding Portland police brutality. To sum it up for the public, it appears there's a rush of social services and mental health associated services to come in and patch up the gap where the Portland police appear to be beating and killing people with disabilities, as well as being persons of color in Portland, which the Department of Justice has failed to assess that, the agreement has failed to assess that, and that is very hurtful and disturbing to the civil rights community. I wanted to bring up MKUltra and the behavioral health testing that was being conducted in Portland, Oregon in the 1970s, which apparently my grandmother was an activist against, and the human testing experiments that were conducted under the mind control programs that originated with Nazis involved in torture of Jewish people in concentration camps who were brought over to America to experiment on Department of Defense-oriented brainwashing methods and hypnosis, and as well as programming of specific militaristic actions like an assassination. That history of co-opting Yale and UCLA, McGill University, Sem Jacobsen in Norway to conduct human research of sometimes a very gross and barbaric method, including the application of electroshock on victims of psychological testing, which was non-consenting, that this is the legacy behind modern day, undergirding modern day psychiatry. So when the psychological community, many of whom have lovely hearts and possibly do great work and have wonderful intent, come in unaware of this legacy of torture and barbarism within the history of the asylum. We need a modern day Dorthea Dix, and as we shift the blame from the Portland police, who obviously need to pass the buck over to the mental health authorities, when will there be a church committee demanding the CIA not destroy and delete every file of the human testing that is occurring on our own domestic soil, on our own citizens who are being detained without access to a lawyer, without access to due process, and without access to the rule of law? And the internexus between law and psychiatry now is a perverse corruption of a quasi-religious atmospheric authority promoted by the concept of the rule of law, which now has the sanctimonious religiosity of cult-like behaviors which involve mass drugging, mass psychotropic events which are induced by incredible big pharma pumping drugs into children, pumping drugs into dogs, pumping drugs into family members, and pumping an ideology of forced drugging. And that this itself is in violation of the core principles which were enumerated by the United Nations after the aftermath of World War II, in the post-Nuremberg era. This glibness I see with the, oh, they're having a mental health problem, oh, they're having a mental health problem, but they're not being very specific about what it is that they mean. And to me, there's a lack of critical opinion about, oh, are these being conducted like witch trials? Are people being put on trial for being women? Are gender norms? Are homophobia? Are transphobia? Are economic concerns being enforced? Are people being shut out of wills and put into asylums? Which was the case with myself. Are there concerns where psychiatry is becoming a part of the police state, and a very dangerous part of the police state, that we need to open the doors of the asylums and find out who is there, find out how long they've been abused, what are the tolls of abuse, not give more money to people who will perpetrate bad action. So in terms of holistic healing, I would suggest that this agreement fails because it is allopathic. It fails because it is not holistic. It fails because it is not naturopathic, and it is not integrative of preventative nutrition, exercise and well-being, good, safe education, freedom from discrimination, freedom from harassment, and full accommodations in Americans with Disability context for special needs persons. And that if people grew up in a holistic manner, in a holistic atmosphere, without this economic segregation and economic Jim Crow and ghettoization and impoverishment, the concept of policing would become such a minimalized and marginalized factor in our quest to provide social care. So I don't think I can get away with going to the hearing without talking about MKUltra, and I'm afraid it's going to be the one point that I forget. And the I guess I better stop. Thank you, darling.